Many learners study English for years but still struggle to speak fluently. The problem is not just grammar or vocabulary. It's that speaking is a physical skill. In this story, you'll practice listening while discovering how to train your mouth muscles, so English can finally sound natural and effortless. Lisa was 25 years old, and English had been part of her life for more than 7 years. She had studied hard during school and even taken extra classes at a private language center. Her notebooks were filled with vocabulary lists, grammar rules, and exercises. On paper, she looked like an advanced learner. But when it came to real conversations, everything seemed to fall apart. Whenever Lisa tried to speak, her mind raced with words, but her mouth felt frozen. The sentences she imagined never came out smoothly. Her pronunciation sounded stiff, and her tongue struggled to move quickly enough. Even simple phrases took too long to form, leaving her embarrassed in front of others. She often thought, I know the words, I know the grammar, but why can't I just say it? At work, this weakness became more obvious. Her company sometimes welcomed international clients, and meetings were conducted in English. Lisa understood most of what was being said, but when it was her turn to respond, her confidence disappeared. She would hesitate, mispronounce, or even remain silent, worried that her English sounded unnatural. The fear of making mistakes grew so strong that she avoided speaking unless absolutely necessary. Outside of work, she faced the same frustration. Watching English movies or YouTube videos, she could follow the dialogue. But if she tried to repeat the lines, her voice sounded robotic, nothing like the smooth rhythm of native speakers. She practiced alone, repeating sentences again and again, but her progress was painfully slow. Lisa began to feel trapped. She wondered if maybe she wasn't talented at languages, or if fluency was simply impossible for her. Yet deep inside, she knew she wasn't alone. Millions of English learners around the world shared this exact struggle. They studied for years, memorized endless vocabulary, but could not make their mouths cooperate when speaking. Her story represents a common reality. Learning English is not only about knowing the rules. It is also about training the body, especially the muscles of the mouth, tongue, and lips, to move in a new way. Until Lisa discovered this truth, she would continue to feel stuck, knowing but not speaking. One afternoon, Lisa decided to join a small workshop titled English as a Physical Language. At first, she thought it would be another lecture about pronunciation rules or grammar techniques. But from the very beginning, the atmosphere felt different. The instructor didn't open a textbook or display grammar charts. Instead, he asked everyone to stand up, loosen their shoulders, and prepare as if they were about to exercise. He then said something that immediately caught Lisa's attention. Speaking English is not just about knowledge. It's about muscle memory. Your lips, tongue, and jaw must be trained, just like athletes train their bodies or musicians train their fingers. Lisa was surprised. She had spent years filling her head with vocabulary and grammar, but she had never once thought about her mouth as a set of muscles that needed practice. The instructor demonstrated a simple warm-up, lip trills, tongue stretches, and exaggerated vowel sounds. Everyone laughed at how silly it looked, but after just a few minutes, Lisa felt her mouth relax in a way it never had before. Then came the real exercise. The instructor played a short recording of a native speaker and asked participants to copy not just the words, but also the rhythm, intonation, and even the emotion. Lisa tried, and for the first time, she realized that speaking fluently was less about remembering rules and more about mimicking patterns until they felt natural. The instructor explained further. Think about it. A basketball player doesn't learn by only reading about how to shoot. A pianist doesn't master the piano by studying music theory alone. They practice with their bodies until the movement becomes automatic. Speaking English is no different. This hit Lisa like a lightning bolt. She suddenly understood why she had been stuck for so long. She had been treating English as a purely intellectual subject, while ignoring the physical training her mouth required. Walking home that evening, Lisa felt a mixture of excitement and regret. Excitement, because she had finally discovered what was missing in her learning journey. Regret, because she wondered how much further she could have been if she had known this earlier. Still, she told herself, it's not too late. From today, I will train my mouth the same way athletes train their bodies. That workshop became the turning point, a mental shift that transformed her entire approach to English. After that eye-opening workshop, Lisa made a promise to herself. She would train her mouth every single day, no excuses. She didn't aim for hours of practice, but for something practical and sustainable. That's how she began her 5-minute daily routine. A simple system that slowly transformed the way she spoke English. Her practice always started with a mouth warm-up, 1 minute. At first, it felt funny to buzz her lips, stretch her tongue, and roll her jaw in circles. But she quickly noticed how these little movements loosened the tension in her face. Just like athletes never skip stretching before training, Lisa realized that preparing her mouth muscles was the foundation for better speech. Next came the mirror technique, 1 minute. She would stand in front of her mirror and say a single English sentence out loud, watching the way her lips moved. At first, she chose simple lines like, "Today is a beautiful day." Over time, she increased the difficulty, challenging herself with longer phrases. Looking at her own reflection helped her become more aware of how she shaped sounds. And it also gave her confidence, because if she could speak clearly to herself, she could speak clearly to others. The third step was her favorite, shadowing, 2 minutes. Lisa played a short clip of a native speaker, often from podcasts or YouTube, and tried to copy it immediately, word for word, emotion for emotion. She focused on rhythm, speed, and tone rather than perfection. Sometimes she stumbled, but she kept going. After several weeks, she noticed her tongue moving more naturally, almost on autopilot. Finally, she practiced the fluency loop, 1 minute. She picked a single sentence and repeated it 3 times, slowly, normally, and quickly. For example, she might say, "I need to finish this project by tomorrow." First slow and clear, then natural speed, and finally as fast as possible while still maintaining accuracy. This exercise stretched her comfort zone and trained her to handle real conversations where native speakers talk quickly. But Lisa didn't stop there. She also applied 2 key strategies she had learned at the workshop. First, she practiced speaking in sound clusters, groups of words pronounced smoothly together, like gonna go or wanna eat. This helped her stop speaking word by word and start speaking in natural phrases. Second, she injected emotion into her practice. Instead of speaking flatly, she tried saying sentences with excitement, curiosity, or even anger, depending on the context. This made her English sound alive rather than robotic. Within just a few weeks, Lisa noticed remarkable changes. Her speech felt smoother, her hesitation decreased, and her confidence soared. She no longer froze when talking to native speakers. For the first time, English didn't feel like a school subject. It felt like a skill she could perform, something alive, physical, and enjoyable. Lisa's 5-minute routine became a non-negotiable part of her day. And as her muscles strengthened, so did her belief. Fluency wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a habit. As weeks turned into months, Lisa began to reflect on her journey. She realized that learning English was not only about studying harder, but about practicing smarter. Her progress revealed some powerful lessons that anyone striving for fluency could apply. First, grammar and vocabulary are not enough. Lisa had spent years memorizing rules and filling notebooks with new words, but her mouth still felt locked whenever she needed to speak. What made the real difference was training her lips, tongue, and jaw. She finally understood that speaking English fluently was not a purely intellectual exercise. It was physical. Just like playing the guitar requires flexible fingers, speaking English requires flexible mouth muscles. Second, consistency beats perfection. In the past, Lisa used to wait for the perfect time to practice, sometimes studying for 2 or 3 hours once a week. But then she would forget most of it by the next session. With her new routine, she committed just 5 minutes every single day. Those small, repeated actions built momentum, and soon her mouth began producing sounds more naturally. It was consistency, not intensity, that pushed her forward. Third, sound comes before meaning. At first, Lisa found it strange to mimic sounds without fully thinking about the grammar or even the vocabulary. But she soon discovered that this was the secret to sounding natural. By copying rhythm, tone, and pronunciation first, her brain and mouth worked together in harmony. Later, the meaning naturally followed. This reversed approach, Focusing on sound before meaning gave her a more authentic English accent and flow. Fourth, emotion drives fluency. One surprising discovery was how much easier it became to speak when she added feelings into her practice. If she repeated a sentence with excitement, curiosity, or frustration, the words flowed faster. Emotions created energy, and energy pushed her mouth to move more freely. Speaking without emotion was mechanical and stiff, but speaking with emotion felt alive and effortless. Finally, muscle memory matters. Just like an athlete trains until their body reacts automatically, Lisa trained until her mouth responded without overthinking. At first, she needed to focus consciously on every sound. But after weeks of shadowing and fluency loops, her muscles started producing English sounds on their own. This was the breakthrough. Fluency wasn't about thinking faster. It was about building muscle memory, so that speaking became automatic. Looking back, Lisa realized that these 5 lessons had reshaped her entire relationship with English. It wasn't about studying harder textbooks or memorizing longer word lists. It was about approaching English as a living skill, one that required daily training, emotional involvement, and physical practice. Most importantly, Lisa learned that fluency was not something mysterious or unreachable. It was simply the result of consistent, physical training, small steps repeated over time. And that realization gave her not just better English, but a new sense of control and confidence in her learning journey. When Lisa shared her story with friends, she realized her struggle was not unique. Around the world, millions of English learners face the same challenge. They study grammar rules, memorize endless vocabulary lists, and even pass written exams with high scores. Yet when it comes to speaking, their mouths freeze. The truth is simple. Many people learn with their heads, but never train with their mouths. Science strongly supports this idea. A study conducted at Stanford University found that students who practice shadowing, listening, and immediately repeating what they heard for just 10 minutes a day over 3 months showed remarkable improvements in fluency, rhythm, and confidence. It wasn't about how many grammar exercises they completed. It was about how often they physically trained their speech muscles. Linguists also emphasize that accurate pronunciation depends far more on the physical mechanisms of the mouth than on theoretical knowledge. The tongue must find the right position, the lips must move with precision, and the jaw must open at the correct angle. Without repeated practice, these movements remain unnatural. It's similar to learning to ride a bike. You can read books about balance forever, but only when you practice pedaling and falling do you finally master the skill. This wider message is both encouraging and challenging. Encouraging, because fluency is not a mystery reserved for the talented. Anyone can train their mouth muscles and build speaking confidence. Challenging, because it demands consistent practice. Just like an athlete must train daily to maintain performance, a language learner must treat English as a physical discipline. Think about it this way. If English were a sport, how would you train? Would you practice mouth warm-ups to build flexibility? Would you shadow, like you were rehearsing plays on the field? Would you repeat phrases at different speeds, like running drills? The more you see English as a physical activity, the more progress you will make. And here lies the real question. Are you willing to commit to daily training? Not hours of study, but just a few focused minutes that strengthen your muscles, improve your rhythm, and give you the confidence to speak naturally. Because in the end, the secret to fluency is not found in another grammar book. It's in your own mouth. Train it daily, and you can transform yourself from a hesitant learner into a confident language athlete. As Lisa discovered, speaking English is not simply about knowing words and rules. It is a physical skill. Just like learning to dance, play the piano, or swim, your body must adapt. In this case, it's your lips, tongue, and jaw that must be trained until producing English sounds becomes natural. The good news is that you don't need hours of practice each day. Start small. Just 5 minutes is enough to create progress if you are consistent. Follow the 4 simple steps. Begin with a quick warm-up to prepare your muscles. Use the mirror technique to gain confidence in how you look and sound. Practice shadowing a native speaker to copy rhythm and emotion. And finish with the fluency loop by repeating one sentence at different speeds. These steps are short, simple, and incredibly powerful when done daily. Here is your challenge. Write down one sentence you want to master this week. It could be a common phrase like, "How are you doing today?" or a useful sentence for your work or studies. Practice it every day in front of a mirror using the 4-step routine. By the end of the week, you will notice how much more natural and confident your mouth feels when producing English sounds. Remember, fluency doesn't happen in your head. It happens in your mouth. The more you train, the more automatic your speech becomes. Knowledge is important, but practice is what brings it to life. So take action today. Give your mouth the training it needs. As the saying goes, your mouth is the instrument, and English is the music. Train your muscles, and fluency will follow.